Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please proceed to the meeting room. This parliamentary forum will begin in a few minutes. Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to commence this opening ceremony of Parliamentary Forum. We would like to extend our warmest welcome to Her Excellency, Speaker of the House of Representatives of the Republic of Indonesia, and His Excellency Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia. Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen.
Gedung Nusantara II untuk menghadiri forum parlementer dalam konteks pertemuan
Parliamentary Speakers Summit. Discussions among multiple stakeholders in this forum will bring various perspectives from parliamentarians, international organizations, and government from across the world. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed to the opening remarks, let us listen to the youth voice. First, we will have a few words from Aeshnina Azzahra Aqilani, environmental youth activist who
and
has
plastic
a
bags
special
and
concern
takes
about
actions
garbage
to defend
and plastic
the
bags
district
and
of
takes
Gresik
actions
from
to
garbage
defend
and plastic
the
bags.
district of
Ladies and
Gresik
gentlemen,
from
please
garbage and
welcome
plastic bags.
Aeshnina
Ladies and gentlemen,
Azzahra Aqilani.
please welcome Aeshnina Azzahra Aqilani.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Excellencies and all distinguished delegates of Parliamentary Forum P20.
And all distinguished delegates of Parliamentary Forum P20. I'm Nina.
Allow me to deliver a message from future generation of our planet.
Our
industrial
planet.
area in East Java.
I come from Gresik,
Our
an industrial
Earth
area
is
in East
facing
Java.
triple planet crisis.
Our Earth
The crisis
is
of climate
facing
change,
triple planet
nature
crisis.
biodiversity loss,
The crisis
and
of
waste
climate change,
pollution.
nature biodiversity
I
loss,
witnessed
and
massive
waste
plastic
pollution.
And I found
I witnessed
a lot of
massive
waste
plastic
dumps
pollution,
along the river
and I
banks.
found a lot
In
of
Ciliwung,
plastic waste
Jakarta,
dumps
Berantas
along the
River
river
and
banks.
Bengawan Solo in East
In
Java.
Ciliwung, Jakarta, Berantas
My
River
father,
and Bengawan Solo
Pigi
in East
Arisandi,
Java.
is now on a motorbike
My
tour
father,
for
Pigi
Nusantara River
Arisandi,
expedition
is
with
now
my
on a
uncle
motorbike
Amir.
tour for Nusantara River
They
expedition
identify
with my
microplastic
uncle
pollution
Amir.
in Indonesian
They identify
rivers
microplastic
from
pollution
Sumatra to
in,
Papua.
in Indonesian
He
rivers
told me
from
that
Sumatra to
almost all
Papua.
rivers become plastic
He
trash
told me
dumps,
that almost
water
all
sources
rivers
and our
become
food
plastic
chains are
trash dumps,
contaminated with
that water
microplastic.
sources and our food chains are
I have
contaminated
seen
with
many plastic
microplastic.
trash are piled up
I have
and
seen
openly
many
burned
plastic
at
trash
people's
are,
house yard,
are piled up
near the paper
and
mills
openly
and
burned
plastic
at
recycling
people's
industries
house yard,
in my area.
near the paper mills and plastic
When I
recycling
looked
industries
closer,
in my
I
area.
found that those trash
When I
came
looked
from
closer,
countries such
I
as
found
Europe,
that those
USA,
trash came
Japan,
from countries
and Australia.
such as Europe,
I
USA,
don't
Japan,
understand
and
why
Australia.
rich countries dump
I
their
don't
plastic trash to
understand
my country,
why rich
to my
countries
neighborhood.
dump their plastic
I
trash
thought
to my country,
they have more
to my
advanced
neighborhood.
waste management
I
and
thought
recycling
they
system
have
than
more
my country.
advanced waste management and
Therefore,
recycling
since
system than my country.
2019, I sent letters to German
Therefore,
Chancellor
since
and to the Prime
2019,
Minister,
I sent letters to
Prime Minister
German
of
Chancellor
Australia
and to
the
the Prime
Netherlands
Minister,
and to the
Prime
President of
Minister of
USA and
Australia
Canada
and the
to ask
Netherlands
them
and
to
to the
stop
President of
shipping
USA
plastic
and
trash
Canada
and to
to
recycle
ask them
plastic
to
trash
stop
in their
shipping
own
plastic
country.
trash and to recycle
And also
plastic
to
trash
stop
in their
polluting
own
my
country.
community and my future.
And also to stop polluting my
Plastic
community
is a toxic
and my
carbon
future.
that fuel the climate
Plastic
crisis.
is a toxic carbon
Plastic
that
poisons
fuels
our health
the
with
climate
toxic
crisis.
chemicals such as
Plastic
phthalate,
poisons our
bisphenol
health
A,
with
and
toxic chemicals
dioxin,
such as
which are endocrine disrupting chemicals that causing health disorders and even cancer. On March 2nd, United Nations Environment Assembly agreed on resolution to end plastic pollution and being adopted by 175 nations, and the plastic treaty is intended to include all impacts from plastic throughout their life cycle, from the production to disposal, including the effects of toxic plastic chemicals on our people and planet. On July 28, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the resolution on the rights to a healthy, clean, and sustainable environment. So everyone has an environment in which we live and play. We cannot keep flooding our planet with throwaway plastics. We have to stop this plastic tsunami. If we truly want to solve global plastic crisis, we must reduce total plastic production and use. Please promise that you all, as the most influential parliament members, are willing to stop this plastic crisis immediately. Please make strong regulations. Please make strong regulations to protect my future and youth in your countries. Please make strong regulations to reduce plastic production and ban toxic chemical used in making plastic. It will ensure the safe and sustainable security of plastic. Lastly, please make regulation to stop sending plastic waste to developing countries for the sake of our Mother Earth and the future generation. I believe you can do it. Thank you, Excellencies, Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, following this, we have Farwiza Farhan, leader of Hakka, or Forest, Nature and Environment Organization, who took huge action in protecting the ecosystem of Gunung Leuser National Park in Aceh province. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Farwiza Farhan.
Good afternoon. It is an honor to be able to stand here before the distinguished and honorable parliamentarian from all over the world. Welcome to Indonesia. My name is Farwiza Farhan. I am a forest conservationist working in the Leuser ecosystem in Sumatra. The Leuser ecosystem is the last place on Earth where the critically endangered Sumatran rhino, taiga, elephant, and orangutan still roam together in the wild. Yet, for the communities living within and around the Leuser ecosystem, it is more than just a home for wildlife. It is a landscape that provides invaluable ecosystem services, such as clean air, water, and livelihood for millions of people living within and around it. While my work revolves around the protection and conservation of this landscape, the challenges that face the Leuser ecosystem are not unique. All over the world, millions of hectares of pristine old-growth forest is under threat of destructions due to overexploitations, as well as wiping out hundreds of flora, fauna, and fungi. Some as yet undiscovered, this loss of old-growth forests also contributing to worsening our global climate crisis. Already, we saw firsthand the catastrophic impact of this crisis: extreme drought and heat in one part of the world, massive flash floods on the other. Millions of people are already affected, with billions more lives on the line. Therefore, in this occasion, I wish to pull your attention to several key issues that, based on my experience, are critical to helping us solve this crisis. First, the paradigm that sees the economic development as separated or even in opposition of nature conservation needs to change. Conservation is not anti-development. It is a conscious choice towards a more sensible and sustainable development pathways that fully recognize the value of nature's ecosystem services. In the end, no amount of economic development will matter if the planet itself is inhabitable. On behalf of youth, I'm older millennial, who are still wishing for a chance of a future in this planet, I truly wish that the governments and all its political leaders can fully realize that the consequences of your decision today will transcend your time in office. It will carry far into the future. Second, effective forest conservation means being inclusive and empowering. Engaging and supporting communities who live around the forest is vital to any conservation efforts. They are the ones that have a direct stake and have to have their say. We need to understand their needs and challenges, their aspirations and concerns, to be able to support them in protecting their forests and their livelihood. This includes securing legal tenure for indigenous and customary communities as an effective way to address the case of deforestation. In particular, the importance of the role of women in all of this effort should not be underestimated if we want to ensure an equitable outcome. Today, women have increasingly served as the key actors in many grassroots conservation initiatives, from patrolling the forest to discouraging poachers and illegal loggers, all the way to restoring deforested areas. We need to involve them more if we are to succeed. Finally, environmental sustainability is a concern for us all. Thus, an open, equal, and transparent collaboration between all parties, government, private sector, and civil society is imperative if we want to achieve any effective solutions. Not one party could solve this massive challenge alone. We need to utilize all available means and resources, including providing space for honest, fair, and open debates around policy issues. We need to protect civic space and address the crisis facing human rights, land, and environmental defenders. Indeed, when it comes to the preservation of our common living space, there should be no room for self-righteousness or impunity. We all have a stake as well as a role to play in this endeavor for a better future. Distinguished audience, you are here as a representative of the people. And as a famous Latin saying, Vox Populi, Vox Dei. The people's voice is God's voice. You all have great and sacred power granted to you by the people. And so I implore you, as a fellow human being who inhabit this little pale blue dot that we call home, please wield that power wisely in these crucial times. Make that choice, even if it's the more difficult ones. Because despite our various race, creed, religion, or nation, we are in this together. Thank you.
A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we will now have a few remarks from Honorable Chairperson of the Committee for Interparliamentary Cooperation, the House of Representatives of the Republic of Indonesia, Dr. Fadli Zon.
Excellency Dr. Puan Maharani, Speaker of the House of Representatives of the Republic of Indonesia, Vice Speaker, Bapak Rahmat Gobel and Bapak Paulus Lodwig, Excellencies, Speakers and Vice Speakers of G20 countries and friendly countries to Indonesia, Excellency Dr. Airlangga Hartarto, Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, and also the Indonesian G20 Sherpa, Honorable Members of Parliament, dear panelists, Excellency Ms. Sahiba Gafarova, Speaker of the National Assembly of Azerbaijan, Honorable Mrs. Irina Yusiana Roba, Member of Indonesian Parliament, Honorable Mr. Muhsin Shihab, Advisor to the Minister on Institutional Relations, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, Honorable Mr. Adi Aman, Senior Program of the IDEA. Dear guests, distinguished all participants, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon us all. First of all, I really thank all for being a part of today's forum. I feel very optimistic when seeing our togetherness here, letting each other to exchange views and best experiences to learn and understand. It is because we have same concern, same challenges, and the most important ones is same hope. Also, no less important, we all reside on the one planet, in which now facing scientific proven destroying due to climate disaster. As parliamentarians represent people's hope, in which have longed for securing peace, security, and prosperity, it is our responsibility to keep their hope alive and revive. We must keep that hope and make it no far from coming into reality. It is our shared modality that should not fade as long as we exist. But our current state of the globe is witnessing poverty and unemployment, famine and food insecurity, polarization and division, war and influx of refugees, inequality and disparity, economic downturn and debt crisis, climate disaster and biodiversity loss, pandemic and lack of access to universal health care, widespread corruptions and authoritarianism. All told are unfolding with no pause, intertwined and complicated, ruining the most in need and less as whole, developed and developing countries, people in the north and the south. So the human severe sufferings are on our horizon, immensely perailing the future and the coming generations. It might be the end of our history if we remain muted with no actions. Now, we have no time to be passive and blaming each other, even no time to more talks, and instead now is the very urgent call to act collectively and concertedly, like many precedented forums have still strongly spoken up. Parliaments and parliamentarians must take leading role to ensure that all take concrete actions. Both actions must be immediately concerted. First and foremost, action for securing global cooperation that paves a best path to proceed to global unity, not partiality, cooperation, not division, and synergy, not discord. That is what we call multilateralism. It must be strengthened, also must be expanded. It further must be grounded into reality and nurtured. Believe me that enhanced multilateralism is the only way out that we can trust. It would bridge various perspectives among nations. 2, resolve our common challenges like actions to keep our planet safer by reducing greenhouse gas emissions. To ensure that our hope alive, living side by side in peace, harmony, security, and prosperity, and to move forward with no one left behind. To conclude, I am very confident that we will have a fruitful and productive forum today. With our more solid togetherness, nothing is impossible to recover stronger and more sustainable. So have a great day and have a constructive debate, and welcome to Jakarta, city of collaboration, and hope you enjoy. I thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, next we will follow the remarks from His Excellency, Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, Indonesia G20 Sherpa, Dr. Honoris Causa Airlangga Hartarto.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace be upon us. Good afternoon. Honorable Ibu Puan Maharani, Speaker of the Indonesia People Representative Council, Vice Speaker Pak Ludwig, Vice Speaker Pak Rahmat Gobel, Honorable Bapak Dr. Fadli Zon, Deputy Chair of Indonesia People Representative Council as Chair of Interparliamentary Body of the DPR RI, Honorable Speakers of the Parliament attending this meeting, as well as the Honorable P20 delegates, Member of Indonesia Parliament, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for me to stand before you, the honorable speakers, and members of the Parliament across the G20 countries, as well as the invitees countries. I'm privileged to have received the invitation to address this meeting, not only as a representation of the G20 Sherpa track, but also as a former member of Parliament. Honorables, we gather here today as the world is changing rapidly. We call it as the challenge of the perfect storm, which is the multidimensional crisis. And without hesitation, security, economic, and environment challenges have delayed our attempt to expedite the recovery from COVID-19 pandemic. As we all have seen, the situation in Ukraine is yet to be stabilized, while people across the Pacific Island will still struggle with the rising sea levels that mark their homes in less than a century from now. The energy crisis that have put business operation down, productivity is lowered, and also adding into the picture. Meanwhile, the spike of food prices that leads to the scarcity of food is essential to leave millions in famine. We can only address those challenges when we are united, sealed by a strong sense of humanity and solidarity. As we gather here today, the world is looking at us with expectation to bring betterment for the people, for your constituents back home. Ladies and gentlemen, our economic performance to date have been relatively satisfying. Indonesia able to grow above 5% during the past semester, with 5.44% in Q2 2022. Bapak Presiden Joko Widodo has been very anticipative of the disruption that may lead to the global recession next year, while continue being optimistic that we can achieve 5.2 or 5.3% growth by the end of the year, as well as we have optimistic view of next year. I share the President's optimism by looking at our economic modality and continue structural reform policy at hand. Our trade performance continue to maintain high record for 28 consecutive months, reaching around 24.8 billion. Indonesia continue to fuel economic recovery through making available around 30 billion, which has allocated to support three main areas: health, social protection, and strengthening economic recovery through the support for tourism, creative economy, micro and small medium enterprises, and also introducing lots of tax incentive. Other initiatives that would improve business and investment climate also launched, such as establishment Indonesia Investment Authority and micro and small medium enterprise support through People's Business Credit Scheme. We also enacted the law to harmonize tax regulation aimed to enlarging tax base, improving effectiveness of tax incentive, and increasing the scope of tax amnesty program. In parallel to those initiatives, Indonesia understands the importance of keeping economic growth and environment at balance. To this end, Bapak Presiden has set a target to achieve net zero emission by 2060 or sooner. In terms of our action for mitigating the climate change, we will continue to reduce deforestation, restore peatland, and reforestation. We will also apply advanced technology system in blue ammonia, especially in the metal industry, and also advancing more ambitious plan for greener financing from domestic as well as international sources. In this regard, I would like to use this respectful opportunity to urge the developed countries to fulfill their pledge to provide 100 billion of climate financing towards the developing countries. Energy transition are one that must be just, sustainable, and contributive to the people. Indonesia, during this G20, have listed deliverables for energy transition through technology such as carbon capture and storage utilization, co-firing coal power plant with blue ammonia, as well as financing model for phasing out of coal power plant. The existing of multilateral platform such as United Nations, WTO, and the G20 must be kept alive. This to ensure international certainty and stability. We need to keep them relevant to the current situation. Therefore, initiating reform to those mechanisms are critical. The G20 is a forum established out of the ashes of economic crisis in 1998 that represent 85% of global GDP, 75% of world trade, and more than 60% of the world population, is once again facing turbulence in the midst of today's multidimensional crisis and highly fragmented position of countries. In the light of hope towards G20 must not be dim. During the meetings of the working group as well as the Empower group, I would like to report that most of the context deliverables has been agreed upon, and the only issues that we have only on the geopolitical theater. Therefore, I urge all the participants in P20 meetings that we have to underline that G20 is meant to be the ultimate economic platform to resolve the crisis. Therefore, hopefully P20 can resolve solution for the geopolitics as well. So, once again, honorable speakers, allow me to kindly remind that our democracy is determined by how much we are, as people representative, will take into action the promises made to our people. If we promise them a vibrant and stable political system and cleaner air to breathe, then through this meeting, we must strive to deliver those promises. Thank you very much. I wish you a fruitful and lively discussion. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, may we now invite Her Excellency, Speaker of the House of Representatives of the Republic of Indonesia, Dr. Honoris Causa Puan Maharani, to deliver her speech and officially open this parliamentary forum in the context of the G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit. This speech will be conducted in Bahasa Indonesia. We request all delegates, all speakers and vice speakers and members of parliament of G20 countries and friendly countries to Indonesia to utilize the headphones for the simultaneous translation. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Yang terhormat Bapak Dr. Honoris Causa Insinyur Airlangga Hartarto, Menteri Koordinator Bidang Perekonomian Republik Indonesia. Yang terhormat para pimpinan dan Parlemen anggota G20 dan negara undangan, yang terhormat pimpinan DPR, Bapak Ludwig, Bapak Rahmat Gobel, juga Ketua BKSAP Pak Fadli, juga yang saya hormati seluruh anggota Dewan Perwakilan Rakyat Republik Indonesia, serta Bapak, Ibu, dan hadirin sekalian yang saya hormati. Saya ingin menyampaikan selamat datang di Jakarta, Indonesia untuk seluruh delegasi. Pertemuan Parliamentary Forum in the context of the G20 Parliamentary Speaker Summit ini merupakan rangkaian kegiatan the 8th G20 Parliamentary Speaker Summit atau P20 yang akan dibuka secara resmi besok. Sebagai tuan rumah pelaksanaan P20 tahun ini, DPR RI berkomitmen penuh untuk mensukseskan kontribusi parlemen dalam menyelesaikan berbagai krisis global, termaksud upaya pemulihan pandemi yang inklusif dan berkelanjutan. Indonesia dengan semangat gotong royongnya siap, mau, hadir, dan mampu untuk berkolaborasi dengan dunia global dalam membangun dunia bersama, dunia yang lebih baik, dunia yang sejahtera, tentram, dan indah. Bapak dan Ibu hadirin sekalian,
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen,
dunia sedang
currently
melakukan
the
berbagai
world
upaya pemulihan
is taking
sosial
every
dan
measure
ekonomi
to
dari
realize
dampak
social and
pandemi.
economic recovery in the aftermath of the pandemic. This situation has placed the domestic economy where it requires the response of fiscal and monetary
agar pemulihan
to
sosial
anticipate the
dan
need for
ekonomi
continued
dapat
social and
terus
economic
berlanjut
recovery
dan
and to
menjaga
ensure
agar kualitas
that
kesejahteraan
the
rakyat
quality
tidak
of
menurun.
people's welfare can be
Kita
sustained.
juga masih
We
memiliki sejumlah
also still
agenda
have
global
a number of
dalam
items in our
menuntaskan
global agenda
pembangunan
of
berkelanjutan,
sustainable development,
yaitu antara lain
namely, among
hal-hal yang
others,
berkaitan
those relating
dengan
to climate change,
lingkungan hidup,
the
ekonomi
environment,
hijau,
green
ketahanan
economy,
pangan, dan
food and energy
serta
security,
kesetaraan gender,
as well as
dan
gender
pemberdayaan
equality
perempuan.
and women empowerment.
Gejolak ekonomi global saat ini dan ketidakpastian yang berlanjut pada tahun depan, serta agenda pembangunan berkelanjutan membutuhkan respon dari kita semua. Kehadiran kita dalam pertemuan P20 adalah untuk membangun komitmen kerja bersama dalam merespon gejolak dan tantangan global tersebut. Kekuatan parlemen P20 adalah dalam mewakili suara rakyat untuk memberikan legitimasi atas upaya pemerintah menjalankan komitmen kebijakan luar negeri dan kerjasama antar negara. Legitimasi parlemen tersebut akan diarahkan untuk menyelamatkan kehidupan masyarakat global yang lebih baik dengan hidup sejahtera, tentram, dan memiliki bumi yang berkelanjutan. Hadirin yang saya hormati, permasalahan global yang dihadapi sangat kompleks sehingga membutuhkan kerja bersama semua pihak, tidak hanya pemerintah, namun juga parlemen, swasta, akademisi, ataupun masyarakat sipil. Menjadi suatu kesempatan bagi parlemen sebagai penyambung suara rakyat untuk dapat mengambil peran mulai dari tingkat nasional, regional, dan global melalui platformnya masing-masing menjadi pemersatu dalam memperkuat komitmen global. Di tingkat global IPU atau Interparliamentary Union telah ikut memainkan peran yang penting. Majelis IPU ke-144 yang diselenggarakan di Bali pada bulan Maret tahun 2022 yang lalu telah menghasilkan berbagai keputusan. Disepakati 2 resolusi yang menjawab tantangan kondisi saat ini. Resolusi di Standing Committee on Peace and Security menekankan kembali pentingnya prinsip-prinsip yang tertuang dalam piagam PBB serta keutamaan peran parlemen dalam mempromosikan rekonsiliasi dan stabilitas di wilayah konflik. Resolusi di Standing Committee on Sustainable Development mengajak Parlemen untuk terus meningkatkan peran teknologi komunikasi dan informasi di dunia pendidikan. Hadirin yang saya hormati, pembahasan hari ini Interparliamentary Forum P20 tentang peran parlemen dalam memperkuat multilateralisme di abad 21 menjadi sangat relevan. Bagaimana mewujudkan multilateralisme sebagai hubungan internasional yang membangun kerja bersama antar negara yang efektif? Bagaimana multilateralisme dapat menjawab permasalahan-permasalahan seperti mendamaikan perang dagang, mendamaikan konflik geopolitik, mengatasi krisis pangan dan energi, melawan eksploitasi, membangun kemajuan bersama dan sebagainya. Indonesia mengajak Parlemen P20 melalui multilateralisme untuk mencari solusi dan konsensus dalam mengantisipasi resesi ekonomi, mengatasi scary effect atau gejolak ekonomi global, mempercepat transformasi ekonomi untuk menciptakan kesejahteraan rakyat yang lebih luas, serta memperkuat orkestrasi G20 dalam menggerakkan agenda pembangunan berkelanjutan. Bank sentral di seluruh dunia ke depan diperkirakan akan merespon gejolak ekonomi dengan melakukan peningkatan suku bunga secara cukup ekstrim dan secara bersama-sama. Dan hal ini akan berdampak pada resesi ekonomi. Gejolak ini akan mengakibatkan penurunan kesejahteraan masyarakat global, krisis ekonomi yang merambat pada krisis sosial. Diperlukan berbagai langkah antar negara, khususnya negara-negara G20 untuk dapat memastikan rantai pasok komoditi strategis tetap aman untuk memenuhi kebutuhan domestik. Negara-negara produsen komoditas strategis selain mengutamakan pemenuhan kebutuhan domestik dan kepentingan pasar, juga perlu membangun kewajiban bersama untuk menjaga kebutuhan stok global yang stabil. Selain itu, juga diperlukan kerja bersama dalam menyediakan stimulus pembangunan yang ditransmisikan untuk keperluan kegiatan ekonomi domestik, sehingga konsumsi dan daya beli tetap terjaga. Orkestrasi dari kekuatan negara-negara G20 untuk mempercepat transformasi ekonomi, baik ekonomi digital maupun ekonomi hijau, sangat diperlukan dalam bentuk nyata. Diperlukan penguatan implementasi agar ekonomi digital dan ekonomi hijau menjadi ekosistem ekonomi yang inklusif. Indonesia telah memperkuat berbagai regulasi yang dapat mendorong ekonomi digital dan ekonomi hijau. Hal ini dilakukan melalui implementasi mengembangkan kemudahan berusaha, bank digital, pajak karbon, dan energi baru dan terbarukan. Dalam merespon gejolak ekonomi dunia dan orkestrasi pembangunan global, kita membutuhkan prinsip-prinsip dalam hubungan kerja bersama antar negara yang efektif, yaitu pertama, komitmen yang dapat dilaksanakan. Kedua, saling percaya. Ketiga, mengutamakan dialog. Keempat, agenda bersama. Kita membutuhkan adanya komitmen yang dapat dilaksanakan pada setiap negara dengan tetap menghormati kedaulatan dan integritas negara. Sehingga komitmen tidak hanya berhenti.
Therefore, the commitments will not only end with words and declarations. The commitments should be followed by concrete actions, no matter how small the actions that we take. These commitments can also prevent the emergence of an international system that is only oriented toward the wishes of certain major powers. With this commitment, it is expected that every nation will work in synergy to build collective power and not creating rivalry or sole dominance. How to build a collective commitment if at the same time we are only oriented to our own interest? This is the importance to have mutual trust or trust building as our foundation in working together among nations. With this trust building should be shown in equal relations in our efforts to find win-win solution. We need to change the paradigm of winner takes all and zero-sum game into a win-win paradigm in international relations. Without trust, we will continue to compete to maximize only our own benefits. Dialogue and diplomacy in resolving global conflicts should be the primary protocol in every collaborative endeavors among nations. The culture of peace and tolerance is increasingly necessary in strengthening interactions between peoples and nations. We, together, in the interparliamentary cooperation, holds a vital role in spreading the culture of peace and tolerance, which is increasingly necessary in the face of the current geopolitical tensions. The constant barrage of crisis is now part of the new normal. A variety of crises that we are experiencing now are not going to be the last that we will face. Therefore, parliaments at this P20 summit must be able to formulate an agenda that enhances the capabilities of each nation in responding to and addressing diverse range of global issues. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the discourse today also focuses on our response to the issue of climate change. The impacts of climate change are becoming more pronounced. Extreme weathers, droughts, floods, and other natural disasters continue to occur one after another and do so with increasing frequency. Global warming has reached 1.1 degree centigrade. Therefore, we need to have a sense of urgency. Now is the time to act, to reduce global emissions, to accelerate the transition to renewable energy, to provide financial assistance and technology for transfer of technology for developing countries. The world needs to develop people-centered climate change adaptation. People-centered adaptation starts with raising awareness and establishing commitments to maintain the sustainability and carrying capacity of nature and the environment. The next stage demands our willingness to construct a world order of industrial ecosystems and an economy that is environmentally friendly. We need to change our mindsets, a way of thinking where we are not simply taking from nature, but restoring the nature to a healthy ecosystem. Realistic and tangible forms of cooperation between people and nation is needed to be able to address core issues, managing global economic competition and industry that can contribute to environmental recovery. Industry should not only take from the nature, but must also be able to restore the nature and contribute to its recovery, a mitigation program with restoration on a systematic and massive scale. Parliament needs to be increasingly aware of its strategic role in strengthening interparliamentary international cooperation for climate change adaptation and mitigation. This is one of the main issues of concern for the Interparliamentary Union, or IPU. In March 2022, the Indonesian House of Representatives became the host of the 144th Interparliamentary Union Assembly with the theme of getting to zero, mobilizing parliaments to act on climate change. Together, the IPU members agreed on a declaration to direct parliaments around the world in accelerating various mitigation and adaptation measures directed at addressing the impact of climate change. The Indonesian House of Representatives has also taken concrete steps to support climate change mitigation and adaptation by supporting robust sustainable development and green economies. These concrete steps include submission of new draft of new and renewable energy as an initiative from the Indonesian House of Representatives, as well as we will start to use solar cells, which are planned to meet 25% of the electricity needs in the House of Representatives building. At this strategic meeting of P20, we are able to make commitments and unequivocal steps in climate change mitigation and adaptation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, through international cooperation, we are optimizing our achievements, especially through P20, by building commitments and agendas for creating a healthy and safe world, creating a world where each person can live in peace, creating a world where there is prosperity for all. We live on the same earth. Therefore, we need to prioritize cooperation, mutual assistance, gotong royong, collective cooperation, dialogue, tolerance, a culture of peace, culture of love for nature, and solidarity to create a better world. I hope that our discussion today at this Interparliamentary Forum for P20 on the role of parliaments in strengthening multilateralism in the 21st century and climate change mitigation can result in a productive common agenda. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. On Santi Santi Shanti Om.
We kindly extend our gratitude to Her Excellency Ibu Puan Maharani. Ladies and gentlemen, Her Excellency Ibu Puan Maharani will be leaving the place of ceremony, and once again, we kindly extend our gratitude and appreciation to Her Excellency Ibu Puan Maharani. Ladies and gentlemen, we will have a short break before the first session. Ladies and gentlemen, our forum officers are now preparing the stage for the next session, which will be our first session of this parliamentary forum. Please remain in this meeting room. We are going to start the first session in approximately 5 minutes. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start the first session of this parliamentary forum. We kindly request all distinguished guests to proceed to the meeting room. We are going to start the first session. Thank you very much. And please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. Mohon perhatian, Bapak Ibu sekalian, kami silakan untuk kembali memasuki ruangan dan silakan menempati tempat duduk yang disediakan. Kita akan segera memulai sesi pertama dari Parliamentary Forum pada siang hari ini. Terima kasih. Sekali lagi mohon perhatian Bapak dan Ibu sekalian yang kami hormati. Kami persilakan untuk kembali memasuki ruangan karena sesi pertama dari Parliamentary Forum akan segera dimulai. May I have your kind attention, ladies and gentlemen? Please proceed to the meeting room. We are going to begin the first session of this Parliamentary Forum. Thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to the first session of the forum, the role of the P20 in the context of interparliamentary cooperation to strengthen multilateralism in the 21st century. Ladies and gentlemen, this session will be led by our session moderator, Mr. Philips J. Vermonte, Senior Fellow, Center for Strategic and International Studies, Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences, UniversitasIslam, Internasional, Indonesia. Bapak Philips J. Vermonte, please come up to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, this session will be led by our session moderator, Mr. Philips J. Vermonte, Senior Fellow, Center for Strategic and International Studies, or CSIS, Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences, UniversitasIslam, Internasional, Indonesia. I shall pass the floor to Mr. Philips J. Vermonte.
Thank you, Master of Ceremony. Good afternoon, honorable members of Parliament. I think we can start. Please be seated, and I'm going to call our distinguished panelists for this session and come to the stage. First, I'd like to invite
Mr. Phillips, I would like to ask all the audience to proceed to the room again. Mohon perhatian, please. All distinguished guests, please proceed to the meeting room again and please take your seats. We are going to begin the first session of the Parliamentary Forum. Mohon perhatian, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, kami silakan untuk kembali memasuki ruang rapat. Kita akan mulai first session dari Parliamentary Forum. Terima kasih.
Because we are going to start the first session of Parliamentary Forum. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have many available seats in the front. If you would like to come a little bit forward, you are very welcome to do so. Silakan Bapak Ibu sekalian, karena masih banyak tempat duduk kosong di depan. Kami silakan untuk mengisi tempat-tempat kosong di depan. Nanti yang belakangan akan masuk nanti akan menempati kursi-kursi di belakang. Terima kasih.
come later will be sitting at the back seat. Thank you.
Kami silakan Bapak Philips, please.
Yeah, I'd like to invite our first speaker, Her Excellency, the Honorable Professor Dr. Sahiba Gafarova from Azerbaijan Republic. Please come and occupy the seat. And second, I'd like to invite our second speaker, the Honorable Irin Yusiana Robaputri. Please come to the stage. And the third speaker, Mr. Mohsin Shihab from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia. And last but not least, I'd like to invite Mr. Adi Aman from International Idea to come to the stage. If I may start the session, welcome to the session on how parliamentarians, especially P20, in the context of G20, could help mitigate various problems that we are all facing together. From the keynote speeches, we've learned that this is a very challenging time for every country around the globe, that we are facing the post-pandemic recovery. At the same time, we are also facing more serious problem of climate change, but there are also traditional problems that we are facing in many parts of the world. So this session will be trying to answer 4 interrelated questions. Number 1, how do we address our current global challenges? There are, for sure, contribution of lawmakers across the globe to address these various problems that we are facing. Secondly, what would be the strategy of parliamentarians across the globe to address these challenges? Thirdly, we've learned from the Honorable Ibu Puan Maharani earlier that we are facing the problem of the erosion of multilateralism and cooperation. But somehow the problem that we are facing right now requires cooperation. That means it can be only pursued to some sort of strong multilateralism. So how do parliamentarians see the future of international cooperation? To what extent can actually parliament across the globe can reinvigorate multilateralism that more or less have been reduced because of geopolitical rivalry, because of pursuing national interests due to the pandemic that challenged the very survival of the citizens across the globe. So naturally, national interest come to the fore. But we cannot afford to neglect multilateral institutions and multilateral cooperation. So these four questions, we hope that can be addressed by our speakers and of course from the participation from the floor later during the Q&A. Now, if I may start with our first speaker, Her Excellency Sahiba Gafarova. If I may read out a little bit CV of hers that I think you also have in the papers that has been distributed by the organizing committee. But she is the chair of Milli Majlis, that is the equivalent of National Assembly of the Azerbaijan Republic. She holds a PhD in philology and has authored many books. She was previously the Vice Rector for International Relations at Baku Slavic University. and a Fulbright Scholar at the Institute for Women and Gender Study at the University of Michigan. It's very nice to meet Fulbright Fellow, if I may. And the floor is yours, about 10 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, on behalf of the Parliament of the Republic of Azerbaijan, I greet you all at the parliamentary forum held in the context of the G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit. I would like to thank Her Excellency Dr. Puan Maharani, the Speaker of the House of Representatives of the Republic of Indonesia, for giving us the opportunity to participate in and address this highly respected forum. Hosting Parliamentary Forum and the G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit is a clear expression of commitment and dedication of the House of Representatives of the Republic of Indonesia to multilateralism, global solidarity, and inter-parliamentary cooperation. Honorable colleagues, today's challenge such as poverty, humanitarian crises and conflicts, social inequalities, climate change, and others cannot be dealt with separately. The valuable lesson that COVID-19 taught us is that global challenges require global solutions. Collective efforts and joint actions are of utmost importance. We parliamentarians, as the representatives of our people, have the responsibility to participate in debates on finding the best possible solutions to the challenges that concern all of us. Parliamentary cooperation platforms are the proof of our commitment and determination to work together for a better world. In this sense, the G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit is indispensable in determining the role that parliaments can play and the level of their contributions to the solution of today's problems. It provides an important framework for bringing parliaments together and holding comprehensive discussions on various aspects of the parliament-government collaboration. Based on previous experiences and results, it is evident that Parliamentary Speakers Summit generate new ideas, perspectives, and opportunities for greater and closer global cooperation. I am sure that this 8th summit will also be an important platform in this respect. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to participate here both as the Speaker of the Parliament of the Republic of Azerbaijan and the Chair of the Parliamentary Network of the Non-Aligned Movement, which is a new framework of interparliamentary cooperation. It has been established by the initiative of the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, His Excellency Mr. Ilham Aliyev, as the Chair of the Non-Aligned Movement, with the aim to expand and deepen interaction between the parliamentarians of the non-member states. This is a proof of Azerbaijan's strong support and commitment to inter-parliamentary cooperation. Last November in Madrid, we inaugurated the Parliamentary Network of the NAM on the sidelines of the 143rd Assembly of the Inter-Parliamentary Union. In order to ensure the efficiency of the network, right after the inaugural meeting, the Parliament of Azerbaijan started the work on procedural documents and working modalities, which were later communicated to member parliaments and agreed upon. The Baku conference, held in June this year in Azerbaijan, became an important milestone in development of the parliamentary network. With participation of more than 40 member parliaments and 8 international parliamentary organizations, we adopted the statute on working modalities of the network, as well as its official logo and flag. We also elected the chairperson and vice chairpersons of the network for the coming 3 years. Ladies and gentlemen, we are still at the beginning of the process. The next conference of the non-parliamentary network is planned to be held in the framework of the 146th Assembly of the IPU in Manama in March next year. As the incumbent chairperson of the non-parliamentary network, I would like to share with you my firm belief that the network will become an important asset to promote multilateralism dialogue, and interparliamentary cooperation. The parliamentary network of the non-aligned movement is ready to contribute to common goals by actively engaging with other parliamentary organizations. Establishment of the youth organization of NAM in July this year on the basis of the youth network and the initiative to create the NAM support office in New York are also steps undertaken by Azerbaijan in institutional development of the NAM. Besides, with the aim to achieve greater solidarity and multilateral cooperation to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic, Azerbaijan initiated a special session of the United Nations General Assembly, which took place in December 2020, and a resolution on ensuring equal, affordable, timely, and universal access to COVID-19 vaccines, which were adopted at the United Nations General Assembly and Human Rights Council with an overwhelming support of the member states. President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, His Excellency Mr. Ilham Aliyev, has also proposed to establish a United Nations high-level panel on global recovery from the COVID-19 that would focus on preparing recommendations on global measures for post-pandemic period. Honorable colleagues, if we want to achieve tangible results of collective efforts aimed at solving the problems of international concern, we should strengthen the efficiency of international institutions, implement adopted documents, and dismiss double standards and selective approaches. Unfortunately, in many cases, countries suffer from these harsh realities. Azerbaijan has also witnessed it on its own experience. 20% of the internationally recognized territories of Azerbaijan were under the occupation of our neighbor Armenia for almost 30 years. Armenia carried out ethnic cleansing that resulted in more than 1 million Azerbaijanis becoming refugees from Armenia and internally displaced persons from occupied territories. Almost 4,000 citizens of Azerbaijan, both civilians and military, still remain missing in connection with the conflict from the beginning of the 90s. During the years of occupation, Armenia deliberately destroyed all our cities and villages, vandalized all historical, cultural, and religious sites of Azerbaijan. 4 resolutions adopted by the United Nations Security Council in 1993, as well as the resolutions and decisions of the United Nations General Assembly, the non-aligned movement, the OSCE, the OIC, and other relevant international organizations demanded immediate, complete, and unconditional withdrawal of armed forces of Armenia from Azerbaijan's occupied territories. However, they were ignored by Armenia. While some resolutions of the United Nations Security Council are implemented within days, in our case, in case of Azerbaijan, they remained unfulfilled for 27 years. Unfortunately, no sanctions were imposed on the aggressor state by international organizations. Azerbaijan implemented United Nations Security Council resolutions, norms and principles of international law, restored its territorial integrity and historical justice on its own. In November 2020, Armenia was forced to sign an act of capitulation following the 44-day war that started as a result of its military provocations. Ladies and gentlemen, despite being the victim of occupation and the country that liberated its occupied territories, it is Azerbaijan which continues efforts to ensure a long-term peace and stability in the region for the last 2 years. Azerbaijan proposed to Armenia to normalize relations and sign a peace agreement on the basis of 5 principles of international law: recognition of sovereignty and territorial integrity of each other, delimitation and demarcation of borders will lead to peace and stability in the region. However, Armenia shows a destructive position in the negotiations conducted with international efforts, creates obstacles to the process of opening of communications and transport routes in the region, and delays the normalization process with its military provocations, the last one being perpetrated on September 13 this year. Such actions should be condemned. The most important thing now is to refrain from the actions that will disrupt the process of normalization of relations, which is the only way to ensure a long-term peace and stability in the region. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for updating us as well on the new platform of the parliamentarian network of non-aligned movement. I think that would be something fellow Indonesians resonate about, being one of the initiator of the non-aligned movement back in the 50s and 60s. Now, let's move on to the second speaker. We have our member of parliament, Ibu Irin Yusiana Roba Putri. She's a member of the Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Affairs Committee of the House of Representatives of Indonesia. She also is chairing the Forum of Women Parliamentarians of the IPU and is an ambassador of women political leaders. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, honorable panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, let me welcome all delegates to Jakarta, Indonesia. I really wish that you have a pleasant stay during the G20 Parliamentary Speaker Summit. And please allow me to deliver my speech in Bahasa Indonesia. Selaras dengan opening remarks dari Ibu Ketua DPR RI, Dr. Honoris Clausa Puan Maharani.
In line with what Ms. Clausa Puan Maharani has said, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, as well as other delegations within the G20, on this occasion, I would like to assure you that everyone here today is in agreement that international cooperation is the key to overcoming a variety of global challenges that we all face today. Since the end of the Second World War, multilateralism has become the joint framework for nations across the world in order to prevent a similar conflict from occurring. Multilateralism has an important role in maintaining global peace and security, as well as providing support for globalization and the distribution of public goods. Multilateralism has also succeeded in becoming a framework that plays a role in the success of G20. This has been seen in the past with overcoming the monetary or financial crisis, as well as maintaining stability in international finances. Multilateralism is expected to be the primary framework for nations across the world in overcoming various cross-boundary, cross-border conflicts. These problems that we've seen are very recent. We see that there is climate change, we have cybersecurity threats, and other problems that are now emerging. And these all affect not only the global economy, but also threaten the achievements in development that we have achieved over the past years. It has also exacerbated economic challenges that are faced by the various countries. This has made us realize that not a single country is able to overcome this themselves. The 2019 COVID pandemic, for example, has shown us the urgency in cooperating and declaring our commitment to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. As a result, I feel that multilateralism is still relevant in responding to the variety of global challenges that we face. One of the key actors in this global effort is parliaments. We provide constructive contributions to multilateralism. We are certain that multilateralism is the key to overcoming these global challenges. We also see that conversely, there are trends
in the international stage that we've seen over the past few years. Instead of strengthening multilateralism, we see that there are some that are trying to strengthen their own geopolitical standing, and this exacerbates conflict with unilateral actions due to insecurity, and this also exacerbates global insecurity. We see that these are challenges to multilateralism, and with these kinds of developments, interparliamentary cooperation is the solution. Dialogue and exchanges of best practices in parliaments allows different parliaments to build trust, to maintain democracy, and to ensure that the multilateral institutions continue to operate. We need to be flexible with parliamentary diplomacy that strengthens cooperation between parliaments as an instrument for international interactions and to address the global challenges that we currently face. Interparliamentary cooperation can also help develop a better understanding, not only in the context between nations, but also between peoples, in order to build a common understanding and prevent conflict. This common understanding can help us build mutual trust between different parties and also opens the opportunity to resolve global conflicts peacefully. With the P20 as a means of overcoming these conflicts, parliaments will be able to strengthen the government's commitments to multilateralism as the primary framework in addressing various global issues. In the membership of various international institutions, parliaments can help build relationships between peoples and on an international scale to develop agreements and resolutions on an international scale that ensures that the global agenda is integrated in national frameworks and are truly bearing an impact on our conditions today. All members of parliament need to actively participate in global governance and contribute to the effort to fulfill various public needs that are needed at this time. So as a member of parliament, it is our duty to represent our constituents and to provide a safe and prosperous future for them. Before I close my comments, I would like to say a little bit about the history of Indonesia during Sukarno's term. He was one of the founders of the non-bloc movement, and he contributed in the effort to start international cooperation that was based on the Gandum principles. And as the panelist prior to me has stated, these Bandung principles have shown that multilateralism and respect for others, as well as the prioritizing of cooperation and a peaceful approach in overcoming international conflicts or conflicts between countries, remains relevant in the world today. This non-bloc movement that is known as Parliamentary Network of Non-Alignment Movement can re-strengthen multilateralism amidst the global challenges that we currently face, which cannot be faced by a single nation alone. In addition to this, we have 120 member non-bloc countries that are also members of the United Nations. With such a significant number, I firmly believe that we can be consistent and we can maintain this enthusiasm of the Bandung principles. This is not only to strengthen multilateralism, but I am certain that this can also bring meaningful benefits to the global community. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Ms. Irin.
Presentation. If I may summarize 3 points, important points that have been highlighted by her remarks. Number one is no country can alone tackle the global challenges that we are facing. So international cooperation to multilateral platform is the way to go. Number two, thank you for reminding everybody in the room, honorable MPs from various countries, that one of the many roles that you are playing is to remind our respective government to fulfill international commitment through various international institutions. So, member of parliaments, also play a very important role in parliamentary diplomacy. I like the term, that because normally diplomacy is rested on the side of the executive branch of power, but parliamentary can also play diplomatic role, involving civil society, encouraging people-to-people relations through various exchanges of ideas, including the one that we are having today, part of the P20 meeting. Now, if I may proceed to the third speaker, Mr. Mohsin Shihab, a senior diplomat of the Republic of Indonesia. He served during 2018 to 2020 as the Indonesia's Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations in New York. Now he is the expert staff on interagency relations to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia, Her Excellency Retno Marsudi. Pak Mohsin Shihab, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Philip Vermonte, for moderating this session. Honorable members of parliaments from various countries, fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon. It is indeed a great honor and privilege for me to have been given an opportunity to speak before this August gathering. In this session, I would just like to complement what have been discussed and put forward by the previous speakers. I would like to stress on three main points. First, let's talk about the general overview of the global challenges and also the general overview of the G20. And secondly, I will try to a little bit expose what we have been doing as Indonesia's G20 presidency. And then let's talk about multilateralism and the role of the parliament. First, if I may talk about the global challenges. We are now in the situation, as we speak now, the world is fronting and enduring and growing challenges. Life-threatening climate change, and also unfinished COVID-19 pandemics, as well as gloomy global economy. And it is worsened by the food supply, energy security, financial crisis that are not helping at all. On top of that, we are also being confronted by major rivalries of major powers, as well as geopolitical tensions. We are witnessing many conflicts all over the world. And this resulted in many social and political problems. Refugees, internally displaced persons, and disruptions of economic outlook in the world. So with these challenges, I think the world is now being confronted with unprecedented challenges. And it is similar like the situation where we are facing the Second World War. For that reason, G20 has to be able to overcome these challenges through partnership, because G20 is a global partnership. And through global partnership, collective actions, and also multilateral mechanism should address these global challenges. Now, let's see the general overview of the G20 itself, the G20 modality. As was mentioned by the coordinating Minister of Economic Affairs, 85% of the global GDP within the G20 countries, 75% of international trade, 2/3 of world's population within the G20 countries. So with those facts and figures, the G20 should be able to make a systemic global impact, because with the policies, recommendations that are being proposed by the G20 will of course have a great impact, not only to the G20 member countries, but also to all over the world. Why so? Let's see now the general characteristic of the G20 itself. It is non-legally binding, of course. It's voluntary and consensus-based, and attended by significant economic countries, collective and inclusive-based collaboration. Why collective and inclusive collaboration? I'll come back later, and it is very much related with our presidency. Collaboration of the G7 countries, or developed countries and developing countries, or sometimes it is being called with emerging market economies. And also G20 also adaptive, flexible, responsive, effective, and become a crisis management solution. As you might be well aware of, the history of the establishment of the G20, it was established right after the financial crisis in the end of 1990s. And in the 2008, the very first summit of the G20 was also held due to the financial crisis all over the world. So G20 in nature should be able to respond to every crisis. So if G20 cannot respond to the crisis, meaning the relevance, the contextuality of G20 is declining. And we here, both the parliamentarians and also the governments, should be able to work together in synergy to show the world that G20 delivers. For that reason, in Indonesia's G20 presidency, we try to implement several principles of the G20. Firstly, we have to be inclusive, promote the interests of developing countries and also developed countries. For that reason, Indonesia invites many developing countries which sometimes being neglected. We invited the representative of Nepal. We invited representative of Pacific Island Forum. We invited the representative of CARICOM. So meaning we invited representatives of all over the world. This is aimed at giving them an opportunity to voice out their concerns, their interests through the G20 in order to encourage all over the world, the people all over the world, to work together. And for that reason also, the G20 tagline of Indonesia's presidency is recover together, recover stronger. Why so? Because we do realize we have serious problem that we need to tackle together. And by overcoming this together, we believe that we can recover stronger. In Indonesia's presidency, we also put forward three major priorities. First, the strengthening global health architecture. Second, digital transformation. And third, energy transition. These three main priority agenda actually is very much relevant to what we have been facing. We have been facing the pandemics, and we try, and we should always continue to try to find solution how to tackle the pandemics. Not only this current pandemics, but the next potential pandemics. We need to anticipate. That is the very reason why Indonesia put forward strengthening global health architecture. Digital transformation, we have been hearing a lot about cyber security, cyber crimes and everything. We need to tackle this issue in open manner. in a transparent manner, and we have to tackle together. And thirdly, energy transition. Energy transition is of crucial importance for industrialization, for developing countries, of course. And this requires at least two main elements. That is the technology and financing. And it has to be about accessibility and affordability of the energy. Unless and until we address these two challenges, these two main criteria, then we will not be able to reach the energy transition in a safe and optimal manner. Next, I will also try to give you an overall picture of what we have been doing. I mean, the Indonesia's presidency. It is 41 days to go, and we have held 372 out of 446 meetings, meaning 83.4% have already been covered. And through these meetings, we have completed like 15 ministerial level meetings, and we have several outcomes, substantive outcomes. We have agreed on many substantive outcomes, although we have yet agreed on one particular issue which is very much related with geopolitical issue. But that's fine, because we live in a democratic values, so we try to overcome later. And if I may also give you a little bit about the progress of Indonesia's G20 presidency, what have been achieved. First, on the global health architecture, probably in the next slide, we have agreed on financial intermediary fund, which have received the pledge of 1.4 billion US dollar. And this fund will be utilized to anticipate the pandemics, the future pandemics, and also try to overcome the current pandemics. And second, on digital transformation, we have agreed on toolkit for measuring digital skills and digital literacy. And on energy transition, we have agreed on Bali Compact, which contains 9 voluntary principles for energy transition that leaves no one behind. We hope that with this Bali Compact, we will have a more streamlined guidance on how to achieve energy transition. Next, let's see about Indonesia's G20 presidency and multilateralism. Well, Indonesia would like to have a presidency that would be impactful with a concrete and tangible results. And this requires collective measures and collective and collaborative actions. Our presidency focused on strengthening global partnership with concrete and tangible and impactful deliverables. To achieve that, pragmatic and real cooperation, meaningful and impactful for the public, should be put forward and strengthened. Benefits not only limited to G20 members, but also for other members beyond the G20. On the G20 presidency as well, we hope we can strengthen multilateralism. We know that we are facing unprecedented situation with global challenges, and people believe that multilateralism should be able to address. But in fact, some also are in doubt that multilateralism cannot address effectively. For that reason, we should prove that G20 can revitalize, can revive multilateralism. And in this, we need also the role of the parliaments, because the parliaments, the only institution that can directly communicate and give awareness to the people, because MPs all over the world they have their constituencies, they have intensive communication with their constituencies, and they are actually the most effective interlocutor on how people could participate and contribute in reviving and revitalizing multilateralism. Through P20, parliaments, of course, has a very crucial role to be a bridge builder and contribute to build trust and hope through dialogue-based mechanism. You know, some people think that we are now in the trust deficit situation. Rivalries of major powers, geopolitical tensions, and many other challenges that also match the situation where people in a very bad situation and also in a very not conducive situation. That's why we have to we have to turn the trust deficit into strategic trust. For that reason, Parliament should intensify multilateral cooperation that promotes dialogue and concrete collective action. Sharing best practices and experiences and challenges in addressing crises all over the world is also key, because we have our own situation. Our respective national circumstances cannot be put in one-size-fits-all principle. That is the very reason why sharing best practices and taking lessons from other experiences are also of crucial importance. And for that reason also Parliament should facilitate policy dialogue on important matters and thus provide recommendations that can be proposed by the governments. I think I'll stop there, and I'm open for discussion later on. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Pak Mohsin Shihab, for giving your insights into the questions that we are asking in this session. And I think what Pak Mohsin elaborated in his presentation resonate with what has been said by Ibu Irina as well about the facilitating role of the Parliament through dialogue, through sharing best practices, and then there are a lot of things that actually can be done by Parliament across the globe. And it is interesting to note that you are starting your presentation with citing our history, that after World War II, there was the time when some kind of an international order emerged after the devastating impact of the war that was then felt by all countries across the globe. And now with the pandemic also brought with it very devastating impact. So actually we have to wait for some kind of a new spirit of international cooperation, similar to what our leaders back then, when they are responding in the aftermath of the war that caused so many devastating devastating results. And I think it is in the minds of the Indonesian leaders now, with the G20 presidency, to put number one, the question about the global architecture of health structure, and that is, I think, very relevant to what we are facing these days. Now let's proceed to our next speaker, Mr. Adi Aman, who is the Senior Program Manager for Asia and the Pacific, as well as Country Program Manager for Fiji and Mongolia at International IDEA, which is a Stockholm-based international organization committing works on improving electoral institutions across the globe that is the backbone of many democratic systems. Pak Adiaman, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vermonte. It's always tough to be the final speaker, but I hope my fancy and colorful slides will keep you listening. And I believe someone will assist me in operating the slides. I'd like to first of all thank the People's Representative Council of the Republic of Indonesia for inviting us, the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, or International IDEA, to contribute in this distinguished forum. We are a relatively small intergovernmental organization with 34 member states, but I'm happy to say that more than almost half of the G20 members are also members of International IDEA. I will name them: Australia, Brazil, Canada, who is the current chair, Germany, Indonesia, our host, India, Mexico, South Africa, and many in the European Union. Japan is an observer state at International IDEA. I'll be speaking about combating disinformation in elections towards a united multilateral front. I believe this fits with Indonesia's priority on digital transformation. So I hope our intervention is useful. Next. Yeah, next again. Next. Let me reiterate this. Towards a united multilateral front. Today I will address the global challenge of disinformation that has the potential of gravely affecting one of the most important democratic processes in most G20 countries, and indeed all over the world, which is elections. Disinformation has already affected many facets of life. International IDEA has chosen to focus on elections, given its significant importance in democracy. I will argue in this presentation that to tackle this challenge, a united multilateral front needs to be established. And I believe that fits with the topic of this session of the forum. Next. Let us consider the situation. Next. First, some definitions. MDM. Misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. Misinformation is misleading or false information spread without the intent to harm and or deceive. Then disinformation is misleading or false information spread with the intent to harm and or deceive. And lastly, malinformation is accurate information that is deliberately manipulated or put in a context that is intended to cause harm. Next. So as you can see, misinformation and disinformation contains false information, whereas malinformation contains accurate information. Next. And then disinformation and malinformation contain the intention to harm. And as you can see, disinformation is right in the middle because because of that, it becomes the sort of the stigma when we talk about problems in the online information environment, because it carries both false information and also the intention to harm. Now, these definitions are not necessarily understood or agreed by everyone, which is why a multilateral discussion is needed to seek common definitions. You can look it up. If you search for definitions, you get different answers. But this is for the purpose of this presentation, these are the definitions that we're going with. Next. Let's now take a look at the online information environment in elections specifically, but I'm sure once I go down the list,
you can relate it to matters outside elections as well. So you see hate speech, trolling, instigation of violence. Next. Cross-platform harassment, humiliation, doxing, defamation, and the biggest problem is disinformation. And these are the examples of malicious use of online information environment in elections. Next. What are the implications on elections? Let's take a look. Next. So, trust seems to be one of the main targets of the strategies aimed at undermining democratic institutions and delegitimizing electoral processes. And this is what the perpetrators of disinformation are going for. The EMB, the electoral management body, is targeted. If the public loses trust in them, therefore the election process and results are not to be trusted. We have just witnessed such an attempt in Brazil. When it comes to election officials, the immediate consequence is to discredit them as individuals and experts. And we have the data to show that. We are currently finalizing it, and we will announce that in the very near future. Next. Now, here are several known MDM challenges: misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. Let's take a look at the first one: interference. Can you stop there for now? Interference, it came to prominence during the 2016 US elections. Can you move back just to interference, please? Thank you. Yeah, so 2016 US elections, this was the first time the issue of interference came to prominence. Question is, by whom? A lot of talk was about foreign interference, but more recently we are seeing that the borders are becoming more blurred. It can be, the intellectual actor can be a domestic person, but the perpetrator can still be foreign, or vice versa. And because of this cross-border issue, and it's borderless, we believe that multilateral action is the way to go. Credibility attacks on officials, political parties, and candidates, troublesome campaigning. This is not merely launching negative campaigns. This is the use of disinformation to get ahead of the competition and in the competition, i.e. the elections. Next. Gender-specific aggression. This is not new. International IDEA recently conducted a study about how women politicians are treated on Facebook in Fiji. And we found that it is true that women are more targeted. But that's in Fijian context. Globally, we're seeing that the aggression may be gender-specific because men and women are attacked in different ways. So quantitatively, there may not be a difference, but the way of the attacks may be different. Thus, they may require different remedies. Next is problematic regulation. Noble intention to address disinformation may lead to negative consequences. Noble intention may lead to negative consequences. And this is understood because there needs to be a balancing act between preserving freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and creating a safer online environment through enforcement of rules and restrictions. Next. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, if you look at it as an opportunity, there is currently a lack of collaborative international action. Disinformation is growing to be a borderless problem, as I mentioned before. We cannot say that the threat always comes from foreign sources. In fact, we observe more and more domestic ones recently. However, the perpetrators may be anywhere in this world. Such is the nature of the internet. Next. So, what to do then? Next. So, again, multilateral cooperation. Next, let's look at each topic. Regulations, rules. There can be joint regulation making and exchanges at regional and global levels. The European Union, for example, has advanced themselves in forming the European Cooperation Network on Elections, comprising of EU member states' electoral management bodies for this very purpose, among others. Appropriate to this P20 setting, parliaments with its legislative powers are central to this effort, as the European example has shown. Next. Interagency cooperation and strategic cooperation and strategic communication should be strengthened, involving, for example, agencies responsible in cybersecurity, criminal investigations, as well as educational institutions involved in enhancing digital literacy. The EMB, or the Electoral Management Body, cannot do it on its own. Making the Electoral Management Body as source of information, or as the main source of information, is necessary. Again, the Parliament is a large contributing factor to this effort. Next. You see social media company symbols there? Self-regulation by social media platforms has proven insufficient. At the same time, these platforms cannot be taken out of the equation because they are the venues of the spread of MDM. They need to be engaged and engage themselves in a collective multilateral effort where they not only deal with countries individually, but also collectively. And we have seen this trend that social media platforms, for commercial reasons, tend to prioritize deals with larger countries, countries which are larger markets to them. That is just the nature of commercialism. How about the smaller countries? So, a multilateral effort can reduce this effect where countries band together and have a discussion and interaction with the social media platforms together. And finally, problems arising from MDM need to be eliminated and solutions need to be found. It is in our view that they are best found through a united multilateral front. Next. So I hope I have made my case on the need to tackle the dangers of disinformation in a united multilateral way. Let us pave the way for a peaceful, secure, and stable work together. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Adi Aman, for bringing up this very important question that we are all need to deal with, because our citizens are now more connected than ever through various social media platforms. Internet has spread out from urban areas to rural areas. Politics now sometimes done in digital ways. So certainly this issue of MDM are one of the most challenging issues that we need to tackle together. 10 years ago, when social media started, actually people around the globe were enthusiastic because it was thought that it will bring the wisdom of the crowd. And wisdom might come from anybody, anywhere on the planet. But now it turns out there are the downside that has not been tackled properly. So thank you for bringing this problem to the discussion. And much of the problem, I think, that has been highlighted by Pak Mohsin earlier is about trust as well. So we have a lack of trust between countries, and probably within our constituencies, there are also lack of trust among the citizens. And of course, lawmakers, politicians have a very important role to play here to reduce this lack of trust that might lead to social conflicts and eventually create a more peaceful environment within the country and between countries. I have just been told, because of the interest of time, there was a question, but from a representative from Thailand. But this question, I think, is very relevant for the second session on the climate change that will start right after this. If I may ask you and pass on this question onto the next session, that would be grateful, because our Madam Speaker has a bilateral meeting with Ibu Puan, the chairwoman of the Indonesian DPR, House of Representatives, 5 minutes from now. And so I was told by the organizer that it seems we would not have Q&A session, regretfully. Otherwise, the whole session will be ended late at night, because there is another session coming up on climate change. But what we can gather from the speakers in this session is that multilateralism is our way to go, given various problems that we are facing, a deep problem, non-traditional problems, new problems, and old problems now happening at the same time. So that's why no country could solve the problem by itself. And we cannot afford if countries would not cooperate. And our hope is that parliaments and parliamentarians, because of their power to write laws, to control the government, to remind the government of international commitment, and also because MPs are the ones who have direct connection with the constituencies, with the people. We cannot reiterate more how important the role that has to be played by member of parliaments across the globe to help all of us, number one, recover from the current pandemic, number two, anticipate the coming problem at the global level on various issues, climate change, security in our cyberspace, and maybe another pandemic coming, we don't know. That requires cooperation for us to tackle them more appropriately next time. So with that, I think I have to close the session. Thank you for your attention and your time. I hope what has been said here might give you some insights, and probably you will bring it to your constituency as the hope of this conference. Thank you. I return the microphone to the Master of Ceremony.
A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to the moderator and panelists. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to the second session of this parliamentary forum. And according to our agenda, the second session of the forum is held until 5:30 p.m. Prominent panelists in this session will share with us their expertise and views on how parliaments can help reach emissions reduction targets and facilitate global cooperation on climate change in times of multiple crises. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let us proceed directly to the second session. And therefore, may we kindly invite our session moderator, Ms. Efi Mariani, journalist, co-founder, and the executive director of Project Multatuli. I shall pass the floor to Ibu Efi Mariani, please. Bapak serta Ibu sekalian yang kami hormati, khususnya yang masih berada di luar ruang rapat, kami silakan untuk kembali memasuki ruang rapat karena kita akan langsung melanjutkan dengan sesi kedua dari Parliamentary Forum ini. Moderator serta panelis sudah siap di ruang rapat. Mohon Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, silakan untuk kembali masuk ke ruang rapat, kita akan masuk pada sesi kedua. May I have your kind attention, please, ladies and gentlemen? You are kindly requested to proceed to the meeting room and please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to proceed to the next session, which will be the second session of this parliamentary forum. This second session is held until 5:30 p.m. Our moderator is already on the stage, Ibu Efi Mariani, journalist, co-founder, and the executive director of Project Multatuli. And may I now invite our panelists to come up to the stage, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, Mr. Putu Supatma Rudana, Dr. Dadan Kusdiana, and Ms. Tiza Mafira. Please come up to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. I hope you're still in a high spirit, which is, I see, maybe not really. Thank you so much. We are entering the second session this afternoon. Thank you. Thank you for keeping up the spirit of the room. Okay, before introducing our distinguished speakers, I would like to first tell you about the what we are going to talk about during the second session. We are going to talk about how parliaments around the world, especially in Indonesia, help reach emissions reduction targets and facilitate global cooperation on climate change in time of multiple crises. With us today, this afternoon, in the middle, hello, is Right Honourable Sir Lindsay Hoyle, a British politician who has served as a member of the Parliament for Charlie since 1997, impressive, and as Speaker of the House of Commons since 2019. As a Labour Party MP, Sir Hoyle served as Chairman of Ways and Means and Deputy Speaker to John Bercow, I hope I pronounce it right, from 2010 to 2009. The second speaker I would like to introduce is, drumroll, Pak Putu Supatma Rudana. From Bali, obviously. Pak Putu Supatma Rudana is the Vice Chair of the Committee for Inter-Parliamentary Cooperation and member of the Trade and Investment Committee of the House of Representatives of Indonesia. This is your home, I believe. He holds a master's degree in business administration from Webster University and is the founder of the Star Research Center focused on the preservation of culture and arts. The second speaker, Pak Dadan, may you wave your hand? Hello, Pak Dadan Kusdiana, good afternoon. Pak Dadan Kusdiana is a senior bureaucrat who currently serves as Indonesia's Director General for New and Renewable Energy and Energy Conservation from the government, as well as Acting Director General for Electricity at the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. He received both his master's degree and PhD in energy science from Kyoto University. And last but not least, Bu Tiza Mafira. Tiza Mafira is an experienced public expert and environmentalist who currently serves as the Director of Climate Policy Initiative in Indonesia. She is also the co-founder of Indonesia Plastic Bags Diet Movement. And she received her master's degree in law from Harvard University and has been featured on the award-winning documentary, The Story of Plastic. So we have impressive panelists here. Please clap. Applause, please. Thank you. Okay, so I would like to give the first opportunity to Sir Hoyle. 15 minutes maximum, if less, so we can open question and answer is better. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm already under pressure, so there we are. Let's ensure that I certainly won't take up all the time. First of all, can I say thank you very much for inviting me to speak at the Westminster Foundation for Democracy panel during this year's P20 Summit. As some of you may know, I am the WFD's patron, and I cannot overstate how important panels, discussions and events such as these are in bringing together parliamentarians from across the world. and in driving progress in areas such as the ones that we're speaking on today. When we think of multiple crises, the one which has had enormous impact on how we've all had to live over the last 2 years through the COVID-19 pandemic, what I am certain that the pandemic has taught us is that in a crisis, resilience, development and change flourish. And I've got to say, seeing that teams in the House of Commons come together, deliver a virtual chamber in the speed in which we did, was a testament to the people who work in the House. For 1,000 years, we were still writing on goldskin. To actually go to a virtual parliament within 48 hours is a massive achievement for the House. And so, when I think of this question, how can parliaments help reach and ensure emission reduction targets that will facilitate our global cooperation on climate change? What is clear to me is when we are in a crisis or the crisis upon us, the mood action that takes many dynamic forms. And we know that no one form will ever size will fit all. It goes without saying that the climate change emergency is one of the most pressing crises facing the world today. As many of you will know, my role as Speaker of the United Kingdom House of Commons is an impartial one. It's up to the government to sign up to international commitments and take the key decisions. The key translating global agreements into action is through legislation. But parliaments must debate those solutions, pass that legislative measures, and then allocate public funding to hold the government to account. However, it's not only the debating chambers of our parliaments where we should be pushing for reduction on emissions, but also in the very spaces where we all work. At the Palace of Westminster, we're aiming to be a net zero by 2035. We've worked hard to ensure that all our energy we use is from renewable sources such as wind, solar, hydroelectricity. And as parliaments pass laws that affect our citizens, we must also hold ourselves to account by upholding the same standards. As parliamentarians, our constituents rightly expect us to play an active part in doing what we can to save the planet. We play a critical role, and as chair of the British group of the IPU, Harriet Baldwin stated last year at the IPU's COP26 event in Glasgow, parliamentarians are the essential drivers in the fight to end climate change because they can advocate, communicate, legislate, scrutinise, as well as represent the communities. And an encouraging sign of accountability for climate policy came in February last year, when Alok Sharma was designated the UK's candidate to chair COP26 in Glasgow. Alok was given a seat at the Cabinet and authority to direct the UK's government climate policy. And the government has agreed that the COP president would have to attend the House of Commons to answer oral and written questions. So since March last year, the Minister has had to attend regular question times where MPs have been able to ask the questions and submit on all matters of international climate negotiations. The House of Commons Select Committee have also provided a number of opportunities for parliamentarians to scrutinise government policy. 10 select committees are working together on meetings where our COP president and this team can go into more detail on the government's approach. A meeting is scheduled for this month before the UK hands over the COP presidency to Egypt, providing parliamentarians the opportunity for fuller scrutiny. Cooperation with individual parliaments like these cross-party committees is admirable, reflecting the need for scrutiny, accountability beyond the simple individual government departments. Climate change is not, as we know, confined to one government policy or department, so scrutiny must take a much bigger approach. This is true at an international level as well. And as the IPU's outcome document from last year's parliamentary meeting at COP26 emphasises, climate change is a global issue which can transcend borders. Strong international parliament cooperation is crucial for finding global solutions. I can only reiterate again how important meetings, conferences such as these allow us to hear from those that are living with the impacts of the climate change. And I've got to say, at COP26, I met the Speaker of Tuvalu, who had presented a striking exhibition of fiberglass life-size polar bears in life jackets standing on a block of ice, vividly highlighting the plight of Tuvalu, which is rapidly being eroded as the water level rises. The exhibition that was given to me went on tour. It visited my constituency of Chorley in the north of England, where the polar bears went on display at the youth centre in my constituency. And so the message from the Speaker of Tuvalu went from a global conference to my constituency via polar bears being seen by hundreds and thousands of young people daily and the future leaders on climate change activities. So the message was quite simple, and it's a simple one. Global warming affects us all, but it affects the poorest even more. So we, the wealthiest, must stand together and support the poorest nations who will suffer the most from global warming, who have the least to do with it. So therefore, it is time for our conscience to be pricked and to recognise that we're in this together and we must work together and support each other. As co-president of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association UK, and a number of my colleagues joining us this week, also members of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, I wanted to share some of the work they're doing to support and facilitate global cooperation on climate change. Last year, they hosted a youth advocacy workshop, bringing together 35 parliamentarians, youth advocates from 16 territories, with recommendations for parliamentarians on how to engage and advocate for the young people they represent on climate change. As I have mentioned already, parliamentarians have an important role. The more that we are informed, the better we can advocate for those we represent. A further initiative from the COP26 and Commonwealth Parliamentary Forums on Climate Change, which brought together 270 delegates, 38 countries. The outcome of that document makes political recommendations and practical recommendations for parliamentarians on the actions which we all can take within our parliamentary systems. The more that we can share experiences, the understanding across borders, the better our global response can be. Yesterday, I had the privilege of meeting with the WFD's Indonesian chapter, hearing about the work they're doing with parliamentarians in Indonesia on environmental democracy, aimed at ensuring there is an evidence-based climate policy making, scrutiny on policies, green budgeting, gender, social inclusion in climate action. In conclusion, as decision makers, opinion leaders, parliamentarians can play a decisive role in climate action in the representative and respective countries. So we must make sure that that role, that we contribute this process, and there is no limit to what political will can do. All of these actions will require parliaments to exercise strong oversight, governing policy, make full use of their lawmaking authority as green economy cuts across the whole range of policy areas. Many parliamentarians may need to enhance their working methods, committee structures, strengthen coordination, ensure coherence of national policies, laws and regulations. Most importantly, as climate action can only succeed with the support of all sectors of society. Parliaments and parliamentarians should work closely with all people, consumers, workers, entrepreneurs, to ensure that the concerns are heard and duly factored into the decision-making process. And I will end on this note. Together we are stronger, and we need to act now.
Thank you so much, Sir Ho. Together we are stronger, and we're in this together. So I think it's a very nice opening to the second speaker. Pak Putu could probably elaborate more about how global cooperation and how Indonesian Parliament, House of Representatives respond to climate change and global cooperation. I believe you have a presentation, I think. Do you want to display the presentation? Yeah. It's like someone will help us, right? And you're also, your constituents also is in Bali, right?
In Bali, right. In
Bali, yeah, that's right. Okay. You probably want to talk a little bit about how your constituents see climate change and stuff like that. Okay. 15 minutes, I'll be strict, Pak Putu, kalau lebih.
I will try. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, Ibu Evi Mariani, honorable panelists, honorable delegates, honorable member of Indonesian Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, I would like to welcome you back again to our Parliament building. This is our home, this is our house. And then I hope also you will enjoy the capital city of Jakarta. And in addition to that, you will enjoy also the beauty of Indonesia. We have more than 17,000 islands, the fourth most populous country in the world. So I think you have to go to each island. And I'm from one small island in Indonesia. Maybe have you heard about Bali? And I'm from Bali, and my constituencies is in Bali. From the name, you know, I'm from Bali. I'm Putu Supadmarudana. Putu meaning the first son of the family. So the first name in Bali is Putu. Thank you once again. It is an honor for me to be here, of course. It's such a great meeting. In this session, we have a topic we will discuss about how can parliaments help reach emission reduction targets and facilitate global cooperation on climate change in times of multiple crises. I'm trying to mention three things, maybe the goals that we would like to achieve, second about the laws, and the third, how we can go forward together to have the collaboration and cooperation. I think multilateralism is very important. As we are all aware, climate change and its related impacts pose increasing risk to all socio-economic aspects of human beings. According to United Nations World Food Programme, by 2050, climate change could even increase global hunger and malnutrition by 20%. Research also stressed that climate crisis could displace 1.2 billion people by 2050. In response to the challenges posed by climate change, Indonesia has shown its commitment by supporting and ratifying numerous international treaties, including the Paris Agreement through Law Number 16 of 2016, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change through Law Number 6 of 1994, and the Kyoto Protocol through Law Number 17 of 2004. Indonesia has also adopted ambitious yet achievable goals. The Medium-Term National Development Plan, RPJMN 2020 to 2024, that incorporates a plan of reducing greenhouse gas emission by 27.3% by 2024. Issuing national determined contribution, which set an unconditional target to reduce greenhouse gas emission by 29%, and a conditional target of 41%, with, of course, international cooperation, again, the business as usual approach by 2030. The commitment to achieve net zero emission by 2060 or sooner, as underscored during the COP26 Climate Change Summit held in Glasgow last year, through low carbon development as the backbone of the recovery strategy that will lead Indonesia to green economy. The Parliament has a decisive role in policy formulation to address climate change through its three key functions: legislative, budgeting, and oversight. In this context, we should ensure that laws or measures on climate change are inclusive and in line with the objective of sustainable development, of balancing its three pillars of economic, social, and environment, which is crucial during the recovery phase of COVID-19 pandemics. To achieve it, I am of the view that parliamentarians must integrate human right-based approach to climate change, which also means we should mainstream and increase visibility of human rights principles of non-discrimination, equality, accountability, and participation in our decision-making. In terms of legislation, Indonesia has adopted laws, regulation, and other measures. The Government Regulation Number 79 of 2014 concerning the national energy policy has underscored the role of new and renewable energy in the energy mix. Furthermore, the Indonesian House of Representatives is in the process of adopting the new and renewable bill, energy bill. This will further encourage the development of the green energy-based industries, as well as, of course, creating green job opportunities. In this regard, Indonesia has so far ensured, among others, the implementation of B30 program, which refers to a mixture of 30% of biodiesel produced from palm oil. We one of the largest palm oil producer, and 70% of petroleum diesel, which is in line with SDGs number 13 on climate action and SDG number 8 on economic growth. We are also in the process of implementing the carbon tax, a tax imposed on carbon emission that produce adverse impacts of the environment, which based on the law number 7 of 2021, harmonization of tax regulation. I also would like to convey my appreciation for the implementation of the Climate Village program. It's called Program Kampung Iklim, which is managed by the Ministry of Environment and Forestry to encourage community involvement, the involvement of community and people in climate action. I heard that Wanagiri village in Bali, in Buleleng Regency, won the main trophy in 2021 for the integrated agriculture activities, including making liquid fertilizer from coffee grounds. Subsequently, the implementation of the palm oil moratorium policy in order to prevent deforestation, forest and land fires, and the production of carbon emission, as expected by the presidential instruction or in press number 8, 2018. Now the moment to go forward. Although we have been action implemented in Indonesia and at the national level, we acknowledge that no country can confront the climate crisis alone. Of course, as expected by SDGs goal number 17, partnership for the goal. We should work together. In this context, Indonesia is estimated to need around 3,416 trillion Indonesia rupiah to tackle climate change by 2030. And 20,223 trillion Indonesian rupiah to achieve its net zero emission target by 2060. Besides that budget, of course, climate change efforts are implemented through Green Sukuk, a Sharia-compliant bond that contributes to environment-related projects. From 2018 to 2021, the issuance of global Green Sukuk amounted to around $3.5 billion and has succeeded to reducing carbon dioxide emissions by 10.3 million tons from 2018 to 2020. Indonesia has also managed to, among others, secure around 103.8 million from Green Climate Fund for the proposal of REDD+, reducing emission from deforestation and forest degradation, result-based payment. Nevertheless, as climate change has affected all countries, including the developing, of course, and least developed countries, we view that principle of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities should still be fully and effectively implemented. Therefore, developed countries, of course, should continue to assist developing countries in their climate action, including in mitigation and adaptation efforts. This includes fulfilling climate funding commitment of $100 billion a year by 2025 as expected by the Nusa Dua Declaration endorsed by the 144th IPU Assembly in Bali. Developing countries, of course, on the other hand, should also contribute to climate change mitigation and adaptation efforts in accordance with the agreed global agenda and based on their national capabilities and, of course, capacities. I also believe that the way forward for Parliament to exercise is to at least two things: effectively use our function to ensure corruption is prevented and that the available resources are allocated for climate action that also target vulnerable groups. We must also not lose sight that the fight against corruption requires increased international cooperation together. Effectively utilize our parliamentary diplomacy function to continue advocating for robust and inclusive action to address climate crisis, including, of course, through our meeting P20 Summit. It is also necessary to explore traditional or cultural activities or local wisdom from other countries to be put together as a solution to mitigate climate change. As maybe one example, in my home island, in my constituency, we have a philosophy of Trihita Karana, meaning the harmony, the relationship between human and nature, and human with God. So this harmony could bring peace and also, of course, in the future, could solve the world problem. And also, in addition to that, in my constituency in Bali, we have every year Silence Day, Nyepi Day. 24 hours Bali in silence, no electricity. I think this is one great example. How to tackle climate change, how to achieve net zero emission to the future. It will remind us that we need to take care of the world, to take care of the universe, to take care of the people, and also we have to believe in God. As a closing note, there are still a lot that we parliamentarians can and should do regarding climate action. I also sincerely hope that the P20 Summit tomorrow, which will explore issues on sustainable development and green economy, will further collaborate our efforts to advance the existing climate efforts. I agree with you, sir. We must act now. We must act together. We must act collectively, unless the impact will be more severe. I thank you.
Thank you so much. So, climate change, of course, it concerns a lot of things, like deforestation, also, but one big topic among climate change is, of course, energy and renewable energy. And also the House of Representatives in Indonesia right now is in the midst of deliberating a new bill on renewable energy. Yeah, and among that is transition from fossil fuel to renewable is like among the chief concerns and also the chief problem of in Indonesia. And I believe Pak Dadan here is the expert on that topic. So please, Pak Dadan, 15 minutes as well. Yeah, thank you. Silakan Pak Dadan.
Terima kasih Ibu Evi. Very good afternoon, Excellencies, Honorable Speakers, Moderators, Ibu Bapak yang kami hormati. Thank you for having me here. It is a great pleasure, of course, to share. I'm from government officer, so we have here also Pak Sugeng here, the chairman of Komisi 7. So I would like to share with you actually the government experience in how that we are promoting, in particular, the renewable energy. And then I will continue to what actually Indonesia has been committed, has been on plan, has been also actually in the regulation, as well as also some other are still in the preparation. Of course, those activities will be in somehow, some are based on the discussion and in particular also the approval from the Parliament. So I will touch on the issue of the current preparation of the regulation later on. Pak Putu has mentioned quite a lot in terms of the energy situation in the country. So I would like to continue the topics in much more little bit detail in terms of the energy situation in the country. So I would like to start with the result of the G20 in terms of the energy transition working group we have done in early September, again in Bali, Pak Putu. So we have, we call it Bali Compact. This is Bali Common Principles in Accelerating Clean Energy Transition. So we call it in short, this is Bali Compact. This is the deliverables that we have agreed. Of course, we didn't have the communique on this because there is an issue in terms of the Ukraine. But we came into the deliverable. This is the Bali Compact. This is a non-binding agreement on the basic principles in accelerating the energy transition, which will be the foundation and reference for G20 member countries in accelerating the energy transition implementation. So we have this. We will continue with this for the next G20. So Indonesia, for example, we have prepared the roadmap on this. I will share later on this. And then it will be continued, for example, next year by India to make more detailed roadmap. And we can see later on how then the collaboration is needed. For example, we go to the electric vehicle implementation. Then we need the critical mineral. Probably not many of the G20 members having this kind of the resources. Indonesia, of course, quite very fortunate on this. So we can see then the much more specific collaboration in this. Of course, in particular, there are three issues in this deliverables. So we have how then we can secure energy accessibility. Now we are experiencing on this energy security because of the war, for example. Yeah. Indonesia is also harmful in this by this situation. Yeah. So the G20 members agreed that the energy accessibility, this is very crucial for us. And also the other two, advancing smart and clean energy technologies, and the third one is advancing energy financing. For these two, I think, of course, G20 is the big 20 countries in the world, but the level of development, little bit, there are some gaps. For example, for Indonesia, of course, we are still hoping to have the collaboration, the cooperation, the G2G, B2B in particular, on how then we can use smart and clean technology. We have very good cooperation with UK in particular. We have also to advance in terms of the financing. We have quite a big challenges actually in the country for Indonesia. Currently, we are using, in particular, is coal-fired power plant. We are using coal on this, and this is, I think, it's not something bad in terms of the resources. We are the country with very huge resources in coal. The bad thing is that coal is emitting the CO2 larger than other, and we don't have any such kind of technology competitively on this. So we need the collaboration in this on how that we can tackle the implementation of the clean energy technology. So I would like to stress in the collaboration, in particular between G20 members, that it has been discussed in terms of the technologies and in terms of the financing. Now I would like to touch on the Indonesian itself here, just to continue what Pak Putu mentioned. In particular, we are actually very fortunate. We are the country which is very rich in terms of the resources. We have almost everything in terms of the renewable energy, from solar, hydro, bioenergy, wind, geothermal, and also the ocean energy. In particular, since we are the maritime archipelagic countries. And it is very fortunate also that it is not only abundant in terms of the resources, but it's also, this is various. So not only we have others. We are the second largest country in terms of the resources for geothermal. And this is spread out all of the country, from the very western part, for example Aceh, going to very eastern part to Papua. So you can see geothermal from Aceh to North Maluku. You can have the good resources in terms of hydro from the Sumatra into Papua. Of course, since we are a tropical country, we have also better resources in terms of bioenergy. Compare, say for example, with Your Excellency, with UK. In terms of bioenergy, we can grow 4 to 5 times faster of the plantation compared with the UK. So we have very huge potential in this. So in the future, that's why we put all of those targets coming from renewable energy on the net zero emission. On the other side, that the electricity consumption is still, well, this is considered low. The consumption of electricity is 1,100 kilowatt hour per year, per capita. I don't know UK, but UK must be more than 10,000. But compared with Malaysia, compared with Vietnam, we are quite far behind. So then I think it is opening the challenge as well as also the opportunity. Because of course we are growing, the economy is growing, and then also the welfare is also getting high. It needs more electricity, and this is the way that we will go with just energy transition to fill this opportunity to increase our Indonesian welfare in this regard. So in addition to that, Indonesia is also committed to NDC. Pak Putu mentioned already 29% by 2030, but actually we are in the position to enhance the NDC, 29 to 31%. It has been submitted to UNFCCC, and I think it will be launched during the COP27. So we are following the spirit of the global, yeah. So we are enhancing our NDC as the response for the responsibility on the climate change. So we are increasing on this. In terms of the energy sector, actually we are still on the track. We have the roadmap here nationally coming from energy sector. So we met all of the target yearly But of course, this is still in the very low percentage. We have to increase, we have to accelerate for the rest of the 8 years to come for the 2030. Yeah. We have the target of renewable energy by 2025 by 26%. Now it's just half, on 12.2%. Yes, we are the largest country in using biodiesel coming from sustainable palm oil. It has been in implementation since 2008, so that's why I said this is a sustainable palm oil. Since we have been used in implementation since 2008. From time to time, we are increasing this blending ratio. It is provided the job to almost 14 million people in the country. Yeah. So we are quite huge in terms of the productions, and I think we are the largest in this palm oil production also. There are some implementation in renewable energy in order to reach the target. We are now currently converting the existing diesel. That again, this is as part of the SDG. We have to provide the electricity to do 16,000 islands. So we are actually now providing to the diesel, and now we are trying to gradually convert it directly to renewable energy, or trying to see the gas engine as the transition. Indonesia is actually net exporting countries for gas. We are huge in the production in this. We will also continue the implementation of the off-grid for the new access for the people, in particular for very remote people, which is again the challenge is much higher and higher, thanks to support also from the Commission 7 on this budgeting process. So this is actually the current situation in terms of the energies in the country, and how actually we will be going for 2060. The President has launched the 2060 last year for our net zero emission, and it could be sooner with the collaboration with others. Actually, from energy sector, from our simulation, we cannot reach the zero one, because actually we are emitting activities here in the energy sector. So based on the current technology, based on the current knowledge, based on the current experiences, so we could reach, in particular in 2060, is almost 129 million metric ton will still be emitted from the energy sector. And how then we will be net zero emission. So we then will use the sink coming from the forest, coming from agriculture sector. So 129 coming from the energy sector, then it will be captured by the other sectors. Then we can have the net zero emission by 2060. So we will do the electrification, in particular on this, from household appliances, electric vehicle, of course, and also for some industrial use in this regard. So we'll use almost any kind of renewable energy in the country. Solar will be the highest part, in particular in terms of the capacity. We will develop, we utilize the other, including the nuclear actually. We put nuclear here since based on our knowledge now that we need the base load. For energy, we need base load. We know that the wind, we know that, for example, the solar, this is intermittent renewable energy resources. I think UK had quite unfortunate experience last year on October or November when you had the bad situation in terms of the wind resources at the time. So we are now diversifying all of renewable energy resources. Of course, it will open the investment. We are, of course, also opening the business-to-business collaboration in this regard.
But then,
Next,
sorry
I think
to interrupt
my-
a little bit. You have only like a little bit
Yes,
of
my
time.
last slide 7. This is the last one actually. The last one, G20 countries net zero emission target. This is the one next. Yeah, this is I would like to stress the support coming from the Parliament. This is the target that has been mentioned. The Argentina, for example, 2050. Indonesia is 2060, and others I think listed here. And we can see here the regulation status. For us, I put here is that Indonesia is in the proposal or in the discussion, but I would like to update later on that we are in the process of the law. So as Pak Putu mentioned that we have the initiative coming from the Parliament on the renewable energy law on this, and it is also energy transition is in that initiatives. Currently, those initiatives are now within the government. We are in the process of finalizing the input and others, and soon to be submitted again to the Parliament to have later on the negotiation and also to finalize this regulation. There are a lot of regulation that has been supported by the Parliament in this regard, mentioned clearly by Pak Putu, so I don't say again on this regard. So my last is that the government, with the support, with the approval, with the Parliament, will make sure that just energy transition is happening here in the country. It's not only on substituting the fossil to renewable, but we have to be take care also to the issue of the social, economy, and also the affordability of the people. Of course, in this regard is also the job in particular. So by this, I would like to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pak Dadan. Thank you. So the last speaker will be from the civil society. Mbak Tisa is an experienced public policy expert. I would like you to comment probably on the energy and also other bills or other legislation, important legislation that you think will probably like help reaching the like in line with the climate change policy. I'm really sorry that you don't have 15 minutes. You probably have if 10 minutes or 12 maximum. Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Evi. That's perfect. I didn't plan on speaking for 15 minutes anyway. Your Excellencies, honorable members of the Parliament, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. As a leader of a think tank and an environmental policy specialist, I would usually show up some nice statistics, some nice pictures from activities in the field, but I did not do that. I did not prepare any slides, nor did I prepare any text. So what I'm planning to do today is to just speak from the heart. Now, first of all, I'd like to start by saying that I have no doubt that the government is fully committed to tackling the issue of climate change, and I have no doubt that parliamentarians, the legislature, feel the same way. I've met many, many individuals over 15 years of my career. The progress has been amazing. A few years ago, we would not have an event like this. We would not have the chairwoman of the Parliament speaking about the climate crisis with such passion. So I wanted to get that out first. However, we also are dealing with a climate crisis that is not slowing down. So we have a challenge, which is that we need to have speed and we need to have scale. So yes, the energy transition, yes, a transition into a green economy cannot happen overnight. Things that happen overnight, not good. The last time things happened overnight, it was a pandemic, yeah? Nobody liked that. But just because we agree it should not happen overnight, it does not mean that we need to take things slow. we do not have the privilege of time. The IPCC has said that we only have until 2030 to reduce carbon emissions by 50% globally. So now we only have 8 years to slash emissions by 50%. So, you know, the crisis is already at hand. We don't need to visualize it as something that's happening in the future. We're already experiencing it today. Last night, it flooded in front of my house because of half a day of rain. And to me, that is not a disaster. To me, that is just a Tuesday, right? This is something we are experiencing more and more and more often. And so, because the crisis is already here and we only have a limited amount of time, we need to see expedient progress. So we need to see all of these policies that have been presented very well, a renewable energy increase, we need to see that happen expediently. And the decrease of fossil fuels, the decrease of activities with high emissions, we need to see it decrease at speed, yeah? Okay, so that's speed. And then we'll talk about scale. So with scale, the government of Indonesia, speaking of policies, you asked me to speak about policies, the government of Indonesia has many targets. So the NDC has just been enhanced. We've upped our commitment from 41% reductions to 43% reductions. The energy sector has been enhanced. 14% reductions in the energy sector now is 15.5% reductions in the energy sector. So this is progress. We're seeing bigger and bigger ambition. But what do these numbers mean, right? The energy sector says that we have a target of 23% renewables by 2025. Today, it's about 9 to 11% renewables. We're not getting there yet. So the scale hasn't been reached yet. What about 2050? There's a lot of debate. Should it be 40% renewable energy by 2050? Should it be 60%, 70%, 80%, 100%? To me, the maximum, the better. The more, the better. The most that we can manage to gain, the better, because that also means more green jobs. And if we're thinking of a future with optimism, we're thinking of a future where it's predominantly green jobs. It's not even green jobs anymore, it's just jobs, because dirty jobs do not exist in that future. So things that, solutions that still generate emissions, still require thermal processing, should be deprioritized. As it does not add to that scale that we need to reach. And it directly competes with renewable energy. So things like clean coal, things like incinerators that still add to emissions. If we need it for the transition, make sure it fades out quickly, If it's a transition, then it means it's temporary, but it's not a permanent solution. So we need to also design the phase out of those technologies because it doesn't contribute to the scale. And so I can talk a little bit more about, I don't have time actually to go into all of the bills that still have those types of technologies, but just wanted to add a note. We still are looking at, if the bills contain those solutions that are not the best solutions, it distorts the scale that we're trying to reach. So what can parliamentarians do to help reach this speed and this scale? You have a legislative role, a budgeting role, an oversight role. But you also need to realize together, we all need to realize that climate change is not a sectoral issue, right? It is an issue that affects all sectors. So it cannot just be Commission 7 on Environment and Energy that talks about the climate crisis. They need to talk to Commission 4 on food security and agriculture, who needs to then also coordinate with Commission 6 on investments and Commission 11 on finance. So there needs to be a lot of coordination between parliamentary commissions and parliamentary fractions and parliamentary parties. And I'm sure that to some extent that coordination happens, but I do feel that it should be more concrete, it should be more of a formal coordination, and I would actually go so far as to suggest there should be a special committee on climate change, because a special committee is designed to deal with certain things in a fast and intense manner, and I can't think of a more serious problem than the climate crisis to deal with in a fast and an intense manner. And the last thing that I'd like to say is that as parliamentarians facing, actually being in the position to be able to judge and oversight and approve and legislate what the government should be doing, I would encourage, ask yourself every step along the way, is this enough? Is this the maximum that we can do? Is this the fastest way that we can do it? Can we do more? Because we do really need to reach speed and scale to make sure the planet doesn't warm above 1.5 degrees Celsius. Thank you.
Thank you, Iza. You actually still have time, so I would like to ask is whether the Indonesian Parliament is really already reached that scale, the speed, and have they done enough already? Well, you do. There's this draft new and renewable energy bill that I think has been discussed for 8 years now. Yes.
So don't think that's fast. I'll just stop there.
Please don't. Thank you, Tidza. Okay, thank you so much for the panelists. Please give a round of applause to all four. We still have a very, unfortunately, quite a short time, but the committee told me that there is a intervention or question from Thailand and also from Russia. I would like to invite first Mr. Supachai. Sorry, yeah, from Thailand. Please, 3 minutes. Not more than 3 minutes, please.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Madam Moderator, distinguished delegates, honorable colleagues, undeniably, climate change remains at the top of today's global agenda as it impacts are felt everywhere, and leaders know that people want to see urgent action. While almost 200 countries have set targets for their carbon neutrality and net zero GHG emission at COP26 in Glasgow, the world needs concrete action rather than promises or pledge of words. Each country should find the solution for this dilemma. For example, Thailand is located in the sub-equatorial tropics, which the sun is hot all year round. Therefore, we should encourage the using of solar energy, which is a renewable energy. Apart from this, Thailand also has a potential ability to develop carbon capture and storage projects to capture and store carbon dioxide. Parliament can play their parts to overcome many barriers and enhance enabling environment to support climate implementation, such as scaling up green infrastructure capacity needed for climate-related institutional, financial and policy reform. Parliamentarians can contribute more through their mandates by ensuring systemic multi-sectoral engagement with broad range of stakeholders in energy, water, transport, industry, and waste management sectors. By facilitating innovative climate-friendly public-private funding mechanism, this would create new opportunities to catalyze financing and investment in green tech projects across all sectors. By focusing on our bio-circular green or BCG economy model, Thailand continues to push ahead with promotion of energy efficiency, acceleration of the deployment of renewable energy and advanced technologies such as CCS, completion of transmission network for renewable electricity, zoning of biomass sources, and raising public awareness in climate change. To name a few, we are also now in the process of preparing the country's first ever dedicated Climate Change Act, which won't prompt our private sector to start aligning their way of doing business with the country's climate targets. The draft act is expected to go through nationwide public hearing and tabled to the Parliament within this year. Significantly, Members of Parliament should communicate strongly and consistently with citizens on relevant reports and fighting to gain their support, because people need to understand the urgent need for action. Without the cooperation from the people, such actions are unlikely to be successful. I believe that the laws and policies enacted by parliamentarians will help the country achieve reduction in emission and net zero as planned. In order to strive for a sustainable future, we must act now. I wish to close by reiterating that must place green recovery at the very heart of our effort in shaping an adaptive, zero carbon, climate resilient, environmentally sustainable economic recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you, Madam. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you very much, Mr. Supakai. We must act now, indeed. Next, I'll give the next 3 minutes to Mr. Konstantin Kopachev. I hope I pronounced it correctly.
Almost correctly. Konstantin Kosachev, yes, the Deputy Speaker of the Russian Senate. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Dear colleagues, I am going to speak Russian. And those of you who yet do not possess the mother tongue of Dostoevsky and Tolstoy, please utilize your earphones. Я хотел бы начать со слов признательности организаторам нашего парламентского саммита, нашим индонезийским коллегам, за то, что тема мультилатерализма является центральной в индонезийском председательстве. No interpretation. Okay. Okay. I hope this is not an anti-Russian gesture.
No.
Okay, I'll try to speak English in that case. It was a good try in any case. But then I'll need another minute. The fourth minute.
Sure.
I demand I will need the fourth minute. So, dear colleagues, I would like first to commend the Indonesian presidency in G20 and P20 for making multilateralism as the focal point, the central topic for Indonesian presidency, because I believe this is the only way to approach the current global problems. Neither political security, nor economic security, nor energy security are divisible, and they do not afford unilateral approaches. And same goes for the climate agenda as well. We in Russia strongly believe that these problems are to be approached on a multilateral basis. They cannot be an instrument of unfair competition, and they should not afford the further gap between the developed countries and developing countries. I may just give you one example how it should not function, and this is the very important issue of international certification of forests. Russia since 2020, is the first country in the world. We have gone before Canada, who was the leader in so many years and decades, as the country with the most square kilometers of certificated forests, and we are proud of that. But due to the well-known sanction pressure on Russia and Belarus, now the international certification system related to forests has put both Russia and Belarus aside, out of this international certification system, which I believe is a completely wrong move. Yes, we have introduced, due to the current circumstances, we have introduced a national system of certification of forests, and it does work. The Parliament has developed a special program of development of the Russian forest industry, and it works well enough as well. It is supported by the Russian government, but the initiative was the parliamentary one, and along with that we have passed very basic legislation in Russia, the national legislation on climate agenda, and we are ready to share our experiences with all interested countries, because we believe that we have managed to find very good and workable solutions. Yet they are functionable on the national level, but we believe that Russia will be strong enough in order to become carbon neutral by 2060. This is our commitment, which we declared in Glasgow, by the way, and we are absolutely sure that we will be able to be there. So Russia has a very good experience on the level of legislation, on the level of practical implementation of our legislative decisions, and we are open as much as possible to the multilateral cooperation in this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the intervention. Very interesting topic, but unfortunately, we don't have time anymore, right? 10 seconds, really 10 seconds? I'll count.
Thank you.
Okay,
I just have 10 seconds. I know everybody worked very hard, and Parliament also worked very hard on this, and then I think it's not the right time to blame anybody. We should work together, work hard together to go forward. We have the same goal, the same vision. Now let's work together to solve this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, all panelists and all the delegates as well. I think we've come to the conclusion of this session. Thank you very much, Sir Hoyle and Pak Putu, Pak Dadan, and Butisa. Let's give a round of applause again to the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibu Evi Mariani. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are now coming to the end of this second session. And this concludes today's parliamentary forum. To remind you again about our agenda tomorrow, bilateral meetings will occur between 10 to 12 a.m. and the opening session of the 8th G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit, attended by His Excellency President of the Republic of Indonesia, will be held at 1 p.m. at the plenary meeting room, Nusantara Building, 3rd floor. Thank you very much for your kind attention and have a nice evening.